I think to start, we'll just maybe have you both tell us a little bit about who you are.
Good. My name's Trina Mewich. I'm Jones's mom. This is Jones. He can introduce himself as well. We live here in Madison, and we've been coming to the Weisman Center since Jones was, I think, 9 months old. Um, we have the very good fortune of having Katie Houston as our neighbor. Um, very good fortune for us. And so Jones has been a participant in her longitudinal study on speech development in children with CP. As I was just walking down the hallway, I saw her picture on there with that study. So we've also benefited from being involved with CASC, the Communication and Aid System Clinic, for many years. We've also been involved with LEND as a family mentor. Not doing it this year because we just have so much going on, and Jones is kind of like a little teenagery now, and so interest has waned a bit. So, but we really have benefited from being involved in that program. So, I convinced Jones to come just because we have received so much benefit from being involved with those programs at CAST and LEND and the neuromotor lab with Dr. Villegas as well. So do you want to introduce yourself? Jones has an eye gaze communication device, and sometimes with new partners, especially in a setting like this, he often will have some anxiety about using it himself. So we've discussed and programmed ahead of time in preparation. And so if he wants me to use it, I will. Since he has given me permission, right? Do you want me to use it? Yeah, you're saying he's nodding to me, so we'll see.
I'm Joe.
Oh, we'll turn the volume up so everyone can hear. And yeah, there's put the microphone there. That works too.
I'm Jones. I'm here with my mom, Trina.
Is there anything else you want to say? There's one thing that he really would like you all to know.
I'm excited to ride on the BRT bus with my grandpa after this.
He loves the BRT bus, and that's very much a motivator for him. So, yeah, I think that good.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, to join us today.
I should say Jones. So Jones has quadriplegic, spastic. Also, kind of have added a dystonic modifier onto his diagnosis of cerebral palsy.
So I'm going to go to question number 2 because I think that that's a good question for both of you, and that is, what has been your experience with inclusion?
We have had we've had very good experiences with inclusion. I think living in Madison, that has been a huge part of that. The school district has done a really good job. We have some of Jones's school support people here today, and all through your school setting, he's been very included, has a lot of therapies in classroom so that he's not pulled out to separate rooms. Certainly, of course, like sometimes PT, you're not going to be able to do that in class. But a lot of time, friends have come with also to the special education and therapeutic rooms. And PE has been able to be in the gym setting as well. So there has been a lot of inclusion, which also normalizes those therapies for all the other students. Certainly as you get older, things change a little bit as far as where you're at cognitively and with the academic rigor of some of the classes. Some of that may look a little different, but Jones is a freshman at West High School, and he's in mostly main regular ed classes with support and modification through his IEP. And then he has some like supportive like a study hall with your case manager, right? So far that's been good. As far as community as well, I think again, as you age and like you used to do a little soccer practice with some of the siblings, and then it becomes a little bit more difficult in those settings. we have a church group that we go to, and they've been excellent about inclusion, where you go on all the camping trips, like snow camp, right? You go to snow camp this year. And so that's been really helpful. And that isn't so, athletically driven, or like, let's say, scouts that sometimes we couldn't go on some of the hikes, were too intense. So church group has been a really good place of sustained inclusion for us.
And you both have a lot of experience with it. So is there any advice you'd give to newer families with advocating for inclusion or advocating at school?
Yeah. I try to do a lot of work behind the scenes ahead of time with staff to make the transition as easy as possible for Jones, and to try to troubleshoot issues before they would arise in the classroom setting. So I try to do a lot of that. And that looks like being really friendly and helpful, and offering to be available for coming into school, or emailing, or whatever that looks like. And that for me is a bulk of my time, but I feel like it's really important on the front end instead of the back end to do that, and make it just more comfortable. And that happens every year, because you often have new staff to train every year and get to know your kiddo. I think that's been pretty successful for us, and something that I have shared with other families that are coming up through school and other community resources. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to go back to the first question and ask, when did you first notice the difference in Jones's development, and what was that diagnostic process like for you?
Yeah, I think it became, I mean, he had a traumatic birth injury where he had hypoxia, which the cord was wrapped around his neck, and he also had meconium. So he kind of, I like to say, double wasn't breathing. So he was intubated and nearly didn't survive that. And then was in the NICU. So we knew immediately that there may be problems where sometimes, if it happened in utero, it may not become evident that there's some issues. But we knew right away that there could be some problems. So we were referred to birth to 3 right away, and then had PTOT speech, and whatever medical, we had neurology on board right away, and we're doing testing with things like that. So we kind of were, but then there was a period where he seemed like he was going to be okay. And then around 9 months, the PT with birth to 3 was saying, I think there's some more involvement. And then he had an episode but we had some further testing that was going to be happening. And then he had an event of clonus in his neck that almost looked like a seizure, although I felt like it wasn't. But then we went to his primary care pediatrician, and they were able to diagnose at that time. Yeah.
Thank you. Going back to talking about school, what is one thing you would like to tell teachers or schools?
Do you have an answer for that one? No. Yeah, I think just having a collaborative attitude, and being open to working with parents to find out what works best at home, and then modifying that to school is mostly, I mean, we've had really good experiences with school, so I don't I know that's our experience, and many families that we know haven't had as good of experience. And sometimes I attribute that to Jones's personality, as he loves being at school, don't you? And you love interacting and engaging with school staff. So he's kind of what I would term a high reward student. The more you put into him, the more you'll get back as well. And not all students have that, especially with CP. Maybe that experience is different than a student with autism that has a hard time interpersonal connection, and that that's more of a challenge to connect with that student, but Jones really easily connects with staff. So I think that has benefited him in a way that that he really is receptive to staff working with him. So that's just dependent on him. So but I think just being involved with family, being involved and open and having like a really positive demeanor and approach towards school is very helpful instead of more adversarial.
Thank you. I feel like that's really helpful. Yeah, advice, definitely. Yeah. Jones, you're involved in a lot of activities outside of school, and I'm curious, this is kind of off the list, but I'm curious how you got involved in some of the activities that you do, like some of your skiing, or you are in the camp that you go to, Chatters Matters, and just how you got involved in that, and maybe how other people could think about exploring options if they haven't been able to yet.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we're always open to just looking and seeing what's available in the community. Weisman Center does a really good job. But if there are any families that are not on Tim Markle's email, that's an amazing resource roundup email that we get once or twice, a month or a week, I think. Yeah, Sandy is saying yes. And that's amazing. A lot of information, especially for caregivers. But like you said, Chatter Matters was a referral from CASP that we went to. It's a camp at UW Whitewater for children with communication devices. It's really one of the best in the country. Now families are coming from California, Maryland, Virginia, because they've developed such a good reputation. And they do a lot of parent training as well. And you love Chatter Matters. Camp Jones is an ambassador now. And this will be his last year, but I think it's like 5 to 15 is the age. And we go on golf carts to transport there. Jones always wants to. He loves that part of it. It's really a fun camp experience for kids. So that's really fun. Yeah, I think we're always just kind of keeping our ear to the ground and seeing what's happening. MSCR has a lot of great adaptive programs. Jones's dad is a certified adaptive ski instructor, and so they have been a part of that program, which is now ended, sadly. Boo. But there are a lot of certified adaptive ski programs around the country, and Jones is going to Utah this winter to ski out there, right? That'll be really fun. But also we have been involved in the kinesiology department here has the adaptive kids fitness class, and Tim Gattenby ran that for a long time. And then Dr. Doyle has taken over, right, Jones? And so we've been a part of that. They do a really great job of connecting you with a lot of adaptive fitness programs in the area. So that's a great resource too. They have a little camp in the summer. Keep kids moving.
Thank you. So you're a teenager now, and we start thinking, right? I know. We start thinking about transition when you're a teenager, which is a hard thing to start thinking about. So what should we know about the transition to adulthood, and how do you balance, or how you're like thinking about it? Obviously, you're not an adult yet, Jones. How to balance, and how do you balance support and, independence? And then another question that you may or may not want to answer is, what about dating?
Yeah. Yeah, I think as Jones is, getting into freshman year, I think right now we're just kind of focused on that transition. And we did some work that, the transition team from middle school to high school was really great. And we've been working really closely with his team. I think he's really getting into a good groove. I think you were so comfortable at middle school having it be an attached building that it's been a big transition, although we already knew some staff from his older sibling being there. So that was a little helpful in having that comfortability with the building and some of the people there. But I think we're really focused on that right now. although we have had conversations about what does it look like post high school, do we want to stay in the 18 to 21 program that's vocationally based and focused. Jones has expressed a desire to go to UW Whitewater since he's so familiar with that, and they have such great disability program there. And we know like Anastasia Wilson, if any of you are familiar with her, she went there. And so she's been a mentor to Jones. So that feels like a possibility for us, and something that we'll be assessing as we get closer to that age. We just went through getting our oldest into college and is a second year. So it feels like, okay, now they're settled. Now we have to focus on Jones. And vocationally, he is obsessed with transportation and public, what am I saying? Jones, what is it? What is it called? Urban planning is your area of interest. And so he would like to work for Metro Transit, or if that doesn't work out, for student bus. Either one of those transportation companies is where he's wanting to work. So we're talking about what would that look like for him? What skills would he need to develop? And possible internships, right? Things like that. So Jones is, of course, every child is unique. And so being able to share what he is interested in is really helpful for planning for us. So he's also said that he does not want to live at home. So and we can come visit for his birthday, but holidays are still debatable right now. We'll have to negotiate that. So he does want to be independent, and so we want to be able to facilitate that as much as possible. What that looks like, I don't know. Group home or an aide coming in, a caregiver coming in, house sharing, something like that. We don't know, but we're open to not having it be our thoughts and what we have thought about as he was a kid. I think we've had some families that are older than us that the parents were like, the kid was turned 21 and said, I don't want to live at home anymore, and had CP similar to Jones's functional level. And they were like, what? We've been planning that you're gonna stay, we're gonna take care of you. And they said, okay, well, we'll figure this out. And it ended up being a really good experience for them to connect with the families at the group home, and that person was very happy in that situation. So I think we feel like not being open to a group home and not feeling like that is giving up as parents. So we're thinking about all those things, and I already know, like, especially with Tim Markle's email, there's a lot of transition information out there. There's a lot of workshops, and even the school district puts on a lot of workshops, I think several times a year. So I'm looking forward to moving into that area more now that we're kind of a little bit more settled at high school. And then dating. What would you like me to say about dating, Jones? Is it okay to talk about Alana? No. Okay. Just know there is some. So can I say where you met though? Okay. So Jones and Alana met at Chatter Matters camp, and they both have like the same wheelchairs. Well, she has a power chair now, right? But we've supported her through things like bilateral hip surgery and spinal fusion, where Jones hasn't had to have any of those surgeries yet. Hopefully you'll stay in a place where you don't need that. But her condition's been a little bit more involved. But they do a lot of FaceTiming. She lives north of here, so we don't get to see them, on a daily or weekly basis, more seasonally. And I think Jones you've moved into the friend zone maybe, and she's still in the boyfriend girlfriend zone, and that's been a little tricky to discuss. But she's a good friend to you. I think you always want to stay in touch with her. You're a very important person in her life, and she has great friends in the support system as well. So that's kind of hard for us to manage. Um, but you're interested in talking to people, right? Is that fair to say? Yeah, yeah. And we'll see what that looks like in high school. So
Thank you for answering all of those questions. There is also, I was supposed to get flyers, but I forgot to. Jacqueline Bender, the occupational therapist in the Weissman CP Clinic, is one of the people in the LEND transition program, which is kind of a two virtual visit discussion of transition, and it's open to anyone who's interested. So there is information on the Weissman website for anyone who would be interested in learning more.
we really like Jacqueline. She's been very helpful in discussing things too about dating and helpful for parents, as we don't know, we haven't been through that. And with Jones, we've been through that with another sibling, but it's much different, and she's a great resource and support.
This question's a little bit heavier, and it's what if has been your experience with bullying?
Yeah. Do you want to say, do you want me to push it?
I have not been bullied. Most people are kind and friendly to me.
Yeah, we really haven't experienced that. And I know that's not everyone's experience. So I don't think that in the little special needs community that we have within our school setting, that hasn't been an issue. And with your older sibling, they were involved in the peer partners group, and the sense that the school that you go to, the high school, that's not really a part of their culture. They're very welcoming and inclusive, and sometimes a little too much in a way. So like some of the students have gone to some parties. So very included. So I think that it's a very diverse school, and there's just so much going on there that's rich, and yeah, I feel really fortunate. And I think in Madison, I don't hear a lot of that from other schools as well. Maybe outside in more rural communities is where we hear that happening a little bit more, where maybe students, typically developing students, haven't been exposed as much as kids in Madison have to people with differences. And it just is maybe fear or misunderstanding that but that hasn't been our experience. Thankfully, I'm so thankful to say that.
That's really wonderful to hear, definitely. I'm curious, Jones, if you want to share a little bit more about some of your friendships, maybe at school or outside of school. I know we talked about a lot already.
You did have one thing you don't want me to say? Just this one? Yeah. Okay.
I have friends from school. Sometimes I wish friends would ask me to hang out.
Yeah, that's been we have friends that we've had for a long time, since kindergarten. He's been in the same school just from zero, like I guess 3 years old up till now. We've been in the same school path. And so a lot of kids he's been with for a long, long time, like your best friend, you've been friends with since 2 years old. And I think you'd like to have some new friends. But that's been hard. And I think we do a lot with families of your friends. So there's a lot of family get-togethers. But people calling you or emailing or texting you on their own is not happening and that's what this developmental stage is. That's what they're doing. Kids are not getting together for dinner with their families. They're talking on Snapchat and making their own plans, and Jones is not in that realm of communication. So I think that's a little hard. We're looking forward to getting more involved in the peer partners group at West, which is very much like getting together socially and doing things. So I'm really hopeful that will help. develop some new friendships.
Thank you. I feel like you've already shared a number of your kind of outlets or places for support, but are there any others that you haven't mentioned yet?
Oh, goodness. I think when we went to Geo's Garden, I think we learned a lot of really good resources at that time that maybe we weren't familiar with or hadn't maybe gotten to that stage yet. So families that's 0 to 7, 6. Okay, so okay, so in that age group, that's when things are new, right? Things don't feel new to us anymore. It's like if I feel like we are pretty aware of everything at this point, being 15. But for new family, yeah, I think Wiseman Center is great. And then if they're involved in Geo's Garden, I'm trying to think, is there anything that you would say, Sandy, a resource for families? You're so good with resources. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And Wisconsin and Family Voices is good too. Circles of Life conference. Okay, yeah. I think once you get sort of involved, a lot opens up for you. Again, Tim Merkel's email is amazing. Just getting involved somewhere and getting connected to other parents as well. Talking each other in parking lots, right, Trina? That's how that is so helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. One of the other questions we have on here is how you respond to challenging behavior and what is the balance between teaching and constantly correcting?
Yeah. We've been going through that a lot more now that Jones is older and having mood swings, teenagery swings, and this like push pull for independence, but also caregiving needs. And how you want to spend your time, Jones, lately is like, I want to be on FaceTime, I want to be emailing and texting and calling people. And it's like, well, we have to spend some time in the bathroom now, and so that has brought on some more tension and some more behaviors. So I think just basic a lot I've learned at Chatter Matters camp when they do a lot of parent training is all behavior is communication. And so just starting from that base point of what are you trying to say? What is the kiddo trying to share? And oftentimes when you get flooded, you can't share. So we've learned that if he's upset about something, the last thing he's able to do is sit down and focus on his eye gaze. He's just not in that brain space to be able to do that. Like prefrontal cortex offline completely. So we have to go really down to basics. And we talk about, we learned a technique with communication when you were in birth to 3, where we just say like, okay, what is this about? Is this about family, school? We do a lot of what we kind of call like modified charades. We're just trying to figure out what topic are you talking about? Or we do a yes or no. It's really easy for him to just look like yes or no. Do you want to go on the A bus or the F bus? We're going on the A bus. And so that's just a super quick, easy communication that is easy for someone who's in a flooded state. So we use that a lot. We just, okay, it's family. Great. Okay. Is it about Aunt Libby or Uncle Buck? Okay. It's about Aunt Libby. Do you want to call her? Yes. And okay, now we've gotten to it. We're going to call Aunt Libby and you're going to say, I miss you. Can you come visit? Right. He's like, you know what? And so we know what a lot of times topics, but as you're developing, Joan, sometimes we don't know. Sometimes this is a new thing. And that's when it's hard. If it's a new topic or new problem. And oftentimes it comes up in an inappropriate time, right, Dad? Where it's like, okay, we're trying to brush your teeth. And you're upset about something. And it's like, okay, we don't really have time for this. But one thing that I've my favorite book I tell everybody is The Whole Brain Child by Daniel Siegel. And that just really helps with it's written for neurotypical kids, but apparently I found it really helps a lot for kids who have neurodivergence as well. The validation part is this so key. Like once a kiddo, if you can say that you understand what they're trying to share, and then you can like that's the first piece, is figuring it out. And then if you can validate like that, yes, I know you miss Aunt Libby so much. She's so fun, right? And you guys you just have the best time with her and you want more of that. You want more of that, right? Yes. And then you can see like the relief. And that's with Jones, but I think with other kids too, that once they get that validation of you have heard me, then we can see the prefrontal cortex start to come online a little bit more. And then we can say, hey, well, what can we do next? Let's call her, let's make a plan. And okay, are we ready to finish brushing her teeth? Right? Like we have to do all of that in a really quick, short period of time. And the more you practice it, the more you can get pretty efficient with it. And then you also feel like, okay, I trust that this communication partner of mine, mom or dad or whoever, gets me. And I feel like I can develop trust with them now. And I see that starting to happen with this case manager. I'll text her like, hey, grandpa's coming. He really wants to have grandpa pick him up. She's like, oh, he's already told me that. I'm like, great. But she's done that work already, because that's not an easy thing for him to say, to communicate, but she's figured out how to do that with him. And so now he's developing trust, and now he's letting her feed him lunch, right? So that has been something. It's just that taking the time to find out what's happening, and then the validation, developing trust opens up a relationship. So but it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm wondering if we want to open up questions, perhaps from the audience for a little bit, if that's okay with you both.
Would you be able to, you want to have some questions? We'll see.
Should we see what the questions are? You can choose if you want to answer or not.
Okay. Oh, Sandy's got a question.
It's more a comment than a question. That's one of the things that I love to talk about development.
Yeah.
Right? And we get stuff with parents, it's stuff to their kids to develop evenly, just like whatever a typical kid is.
Yeah.
And I think especially those of us that have another child who is also classified as typically developing, it's easy to compare our child who's not developing in the same way.
Yeah.
To get stuck in just because this piece of development isn't
Yeah.
other pieces are.
Yeah.
Assuming that the rest aren't. And I hear with you, your
Yeah.
recognition that, wait a minute, this might not be where we would expect a 15-year-old to be, but
Yeah.
this is.
This is,
And
yeah.
how do we make sure we
Yeah.
respond to what is? Inadvertently kind of infantilize our children.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting, right?
Mhm.
And we think that parent education, like we're in this together. How do we collectively support all the development of the child? Helpful. And it's really cool to hear you talk about some of the methods you've been taught over the years, because you know my daughter's EP and also has CP, and you know her pretty well. And we haven't, because she doesn't use a communication device, we haven't heard some of those things. Like, oh, that would have been really helpful.
Yeah.
So I think just as much education of parents that you've done is so helpful, because we're doing this for the first time.
Yeah.
We don't have a roadmap. We rely on experts to help us, and
Yeah.
that's why it's important for us to connect to other families to like better habits.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I think some of the data that we get from testing that we do is very discouraging. Oh, you're less than, less than this terrible percentage of development. And yet when you see the child or the kiddo, you can tell, oh, but they really have some strengths. And that's hard to quantify sometimes. And so not getting caught up in all of that. And yeah, I think even with neurotypical kids, you're going to see like, oh, your reading level is really high, but your expressive language is terrible, or you can't write, or your writing level is really low. And so we see those variances in all kids. It's not just kids that have but to just kind of say, where are you at in this area? Where one thing that we've really focused on is where are you showing aptitude for growth and interest? Like, okay, hey, OT is going really well. Let's just like throw everything at OT right now, or PT is going well, or speech. Whatever is going well, just really kind of move into that. Because that's where the brain is showing it's like, okay, I'm ready for this step, or and just being okay with where they're at too. Just that acceptance piece. It's hard to balance acceptance versus like pushing, right? So that's a hard balance.
Personally, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking and being so vulnerable. I feel like I've learned so much. So I'm currently a rescue provider for a young man with CP.
Yeah.
And he actually uses an audience as well. He's nonverbal. He really enjoys like being outside and we read a lot and
Yeah.
like I was just curious if maybe you had any like podcast channel recommendations, if there's anything that you enjoy to do. That maybe I could do with him as well.
Yeah.
Curious if there's anything you do on a daily basis that really
I would say Curbside with Corey is a good he's got some really fun YouTube, but he loves to travel and it's all about accessibility. I really like that one. What are the, well, you love to watch any video with someone in a wheelchair accessing transportation is something, and they're often adults, right, or older kids, so it's really fun to see like, hey, they're doing that, I can do that as well. I don't know about podcasts. I feel like I just listen to podcasts for my interests.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. I wonder. I that's a good thing, because people with communication issues, may not be included in the podcast world. Maybe we just found a gap in where someone could move into that. What's his name? Mike Williams? Is it Mike Williams, Tom? Mike Williams. We just went he was one of the first users of communication device AAC, and he worked in the White House. Like, he's really he's older now. Of course, I can't think of he has an advocacy group out of, I think he's in DC or the Virginia area. Yeah, I would search him up. He's got some YouTube videos and in his group too. Yeah, I mean, that's great if he listens to music, and yeah, I can't think of any. There's that comedian that has CP too. I wonder if he has like a podcast or some videos. It's always fun to laugh. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you seen his like quest for the rainbow bagel?
No.
It's all about him trying to navigate New York City to get to this rainbow bagel.
Yeah.
And so, Jones, if you like watching transportation videos, like, it is all about his transportation follies trying to get around Manhattan.
I feel like now I feel like he's had problems with curbs, and he's trying. Okay, I feel like I have. That's so like funny. Vague. Yeah. That would be good. We need some new people to look at. Yeah. Thank you.
I want to ask if you're comfortable, especially since Jones was like a freshman in high school. I remember like just going through that transition and just like experiencing like stress, like for the first time, and like just like classes, it's like from like middle school. How do you guys, like as his parents, like help him like cope or like manage stress in different aspects? I know that feel like a huge thing to manage, going through that transition.
Yeah. We've been trying to give you enough time to sleep, and maybe sleep in if he needs. He's like, so having some downtime and not peppering him with so many questions when you got home. Like, did you eat lunch? Did you get a diaper change? How was French today? Did you do your presentation? Just kind of letting him spend some little time just, decompressing, and then maybe easing into those kind of questions. We do some breathing, and we do some, I think they did some do your fingers. Yeah, we do some breathing and counting. Those are things that they identified in Miss Milam's class, Mr. Scott, with like they did a whole social emotional where they each student like found out what helped calm them, what were their like coping and self-soothing skills. And so we still use those when you get upset. But try not to put too much pressure. I mean, he has a whole support team, I think, which is so different than neurotypical kids going into high school. Like, I have no idea where I'm going. What's my homework? Where's my Google Classroom? Where having a support staff, I think, lessens some of those stresses for us as well. Like, okay, well, they know what's going on. They'll let us know. And yeah, I think it's just figuring out like, what is this going to be like? And yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So we were in the cask at 9 months old. So people were coming to our house and they had I don't know if, I mean, you wouldn't remember this, you were so little, but they had a frame. It was just like a frame, like a picture frame, and then they would stick things like Twinkle Little Star or Wheels on the Bus in the corners, and they would have their face in it and be like, hey, look at which song you want to write, sing. And so that was the beginning of communication, of looking at what you want. And then we just went from there. He's had several communication devices. Can't even remember the name of the first one that we had. This is his third. This is called Tobii Dynavox is the manufacturer that we've mostly worked with. This is called the TD Pilot. It's their newest model. It's iOS based, so it's an iPad in here. And then it has eye gaze detection software. And there's a strip on the bottom that detects his eyes. It works like a mouse. So he just will focus on it and then it'll activate that button. So he can also, we've opened it up now where he can FaceTime, he can text on there, he can do like Google Maps, he can search on the internet. And so that's been a really nice thing. And we're really hopeful there. There are things on here we haven't opened up yet, like remote assistance with turning the channels, you can turn lights on and off, you can turn a stove if that's Wi-Fi, any of those things are going to be available to him as he ages, and it shows responsibility and things like that. So it also has like Google assistants like Alexa or things like that. So he can say, can you turn, what's the weather like today? So they're just like technology is going to be so amazing for him as he ages, and increase independence. He's pretty shy about using it. So that's kind of something we'd like to help him develop confidence with. In 8th grade, he was really using it a lot. He felt very comfortable with all of his peers and teachers. And we're hopeful that that will not take a ton of time through high school, that he'll be able to do that. So again, it is hard when he's upset to access it. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, we'll bring your eye gaze to dinner and we'll put it out. And he'll be like, I'm not using that. I'm not going to do that. And so, but we always want to make that available. Sometimes communication isn't his priority, even though I would always assume that it is. Sometimes it's not for him, and I have to respect that. I can't push him, or you can't, watch TV until you tell me I want to watch TV. We are not doing that. It should be a choice, right? We really need to respect that. We do have a low tech board because sometimes things happen to these. They don't, like, it's not plugged in all the way at night, and then in the morning it's not plugged in, or they don't work. Something's wrong. The battery packs died in the last one. Remember that, Tom? And we couldn't get other ones. And so this is his low tech board. He can just say like, I want to call somebody. Okay, great. Who do you want to call? And then we have this supposed to be together, but they always fall apart. So we get these from Cask. They make these for us every year. Okay, you want to call Aunt Libby and check in on her. Great, we'll do that. So this is something we can just, it has some school stuff. It has just, oh, on the playground, where do you want to go? I guess you don't have a playground at West, do you? Transportation, do you want to go on the bus or do you want to go in the Beetle today? So that's just something that's accessible anywhere. And we can just throw it in the backpack. We've got it on the bus, we've got it in the car, where this doesn't work in those places. So this is never going to not be charged too. So this is just indispensable for us to have quick communication along with our hands. And this, we've got so many different ways to communicate. Yeah.
Feel like that like matched with the timeline we were looking for. You wish you would have had an earlier diagnosis, did it feel too soon?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. He was 11 months old, and it didn't feel too soon. I think we had read that usually before 12 to 18 months, you're going to see that you're not developing mostly motor skills, because it really is a motor disorder in essence. And so, and then it can be more involved than that, but that's the beginning of it, is the motor piece. So you're usually going to see that come out. So we knew that, and he wasn't really sitting. Balance was really difficult. So we knew that that was probably coming. We didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but no, it wasn't a surprise. We already had a lot of services, but it was really helpful to have the diagnosis to access services, because this was prior to Obamacare, and I had stopped working, and our private insurance wouldn't cover him, and we had to get Badger Care, and that was a whole ordeal. We couldn't qualify for Katie Beckett because he wasn't impaired enough at that age. So, I mean, thank God we're not there, but insurance was a huge issue, because they were like, oh, you've got neurology appointments coming up. We don't know what we'd be covering, was essentially what they were telling us. So we can't, do rates because we don't know what we're covering. So until you have a diagnosis, we don't know. So we were happy to get that. It does open doors for services when you get a diagnosis, even though it's difficult to process emotionally. It's best for the child to have a diagnosis to work with. Hopefully, if it's accurate diagnosis, that's there too. But we really felt comfortable with our practitioner who diagnosed him as well. So that was a comfort. Like, we're going to take care of him. We're going to figure this out. We're going to be there for him. And they were. So, Dr. Chbosky. Yeah. And was that helpful? Was that okay? Yeah. I think when he was younger, kids were more apt to use some of the communication things. Like, I always remember Trey at a birthday party was like, do you want cheese or pepperoni? And then went and got him a piece of pizza. And he's not going to eat it, but it was a really good interaction. I think he had some more of those when he was younger. Like, hey, do you want to use blue or green? I think I remember Caleb asking you that when you were coloring, and there was more. I mean, just the virtue of how more play-based school environment is. You're sitting there, you're using different tools or manipulatives that are easier for kids to interact with. Now it's like when you're sitting at a desk and you're on your Chromebook, there's not as much interaction. But classes like HTV, you did a lot of more group work, I think, is really good for him. And he's able to express needs, and kids are like, oh, Jones can really, share some things, and I can talk to him. So I think when it's a more one-on-one or group, but in a classroom, it just depends. He was doing better, and he was doing really well in 8th grade, but I think there was a big gap with COVID, and when he was online, but you were able to type in the chat, and that was helpful too. So like on Zoom, you can type in a chat, and then that's that's the way that other people are communicating as well, where this is different, right? But everyone else is typing in the chat too, comments. And so that is a equalizer in a way, because a lot of people, you're not talking over the instructor. So it just depends on the modality. I think it really is just dependent upon the communication that's happening within the classroom or the setting. But yeah, I think he doesn't communicate as much with peers. Now, it was more when he was younger. But with adults, yeah, he really likes to have a communication partner with an adult. They're less scary, they're less, they're more patient, right? Kids are just like, okay, I'm going this way, and they just don't have that ability to just kind of sit there and wait for a message to be produced. Yeah, do you have anything you want to say about that? No.
Well, thank you both so much, Trina and Jones, for sharing so much wisdom and being open to sharing so much about your experiences this morning. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.